all, what you're about to watch is a part of an episode from our podcast called Anything Goes with the Bunnies.
We like to deep dive on a lot of things, ranging from trending to random, silly to serious, happy and sad. Hope we get to help you today. Welcome back to Anything Goes with...
The Bunnies!
And this is a new background for those of the people who are watching this on video.
Yeah, because our topic today is very stressful. So we are doing our part in removing that stress from you.
Colette, okay. So those of
Gusto
you...
naming ma-relax kayo kung kayo ay nanonood sa inyong mga... Kung may video kayong pinapanood kasama nitong podcast namin, sana ma-relax kayo.
Those of you who are on just audio, we are at our kids' bedroom. We've got their beds behind us. We've got pillows, blankets.
And the real reason for us...
Hopefully we don't fall asleep
the
middle of the recording.
But the real reason really for choosing this kind of background is because ayoko na mag-makeup.
Is that it?
Gusto, malapit na kasi kami matulog. After na, matutulog na kami. Kaya sabi ko, edi, i-match na lang natin lang.
Okay.
Topic of the day.
So anyway, okay, today we are going to do one of the three topics that we actually asked our community about. Like, we asked our Telegram community if we had these three topics, anong gusto nilang unahin. And the first one is forgiveness, which is something that you probably listened to last week. If not, you could just go back one episode away. That's all about forgiveness. So that's like an hour, 15 minutes. And actually, we're going to recap something. Well, not really recap, but there are a couple more questions
Some
that came in.
yeah.
Not really follow-ups, but more like...
Not follow-ups.
They came in tapos na tayo mag-recording. So,
yeah.
I kind of felt like these questions were not really addressed in that episode.
So
we're gonna answer a few.
But today's episode is about burnout. Yes. And how does it happen? What are the symptoms? How do you know if you've burned out? And most importantly, what do you do? How do you respond? How do you break out of that burnout? But before that, your questions.
Question and answer.
Okay, so this one is actually something that we kind of answered in that episode also, but I want to add more to it. So this person said that I don't want to say it's too kasi parang I don't want to read the entire thing because it's too specific. So I don't want to out this person naman. So parang sabi niya na inabuse siya ng grandfather niya. And of course, back then when this person had the opportunity to forgive, this person actually said it, like, I forgive. But then, the question that kept coming up even last week was that, how do I know I really did, especially when I still feel things? And,
so this person is saying that at one point in a spiritual or religious conversation, this person was asked, have you forgiven the person?
Right.
And they said, yes, I have. But they know it wasn't 100%. And they feel guilty about it.
And I wonder kasi what they mean about the 100%.
Yeah.
Na yun nga yung in-address natin in the last episode na it doesn't mean that all the feelings will go away. And why I picked this question to answer even for today is because I feel like I didn't say it enough, that we must understand the difference between unforgiveness and trauma. Because there's the reality of trauma. And every time trauma comes up in your life, it doesn't mean, especially so when you've already said na you've forgiven this person, that magically it will take the trauma away.
Yeah.
Healing and forgiving are like two different things.
Yes.
Yun lang. That's what I wanted to add.
Yep. And we did address that in the last episode, where you might feel anger, you might feel the cost of what they did. That's not the same thing as unforgiveness. Unforgiveness is choosing to hold it against them, to count it against them, to keep wanting to see them pay, which is pretty hard if the person's dead already. So, yeah.
Okay. The next thing is that, is there such a thing as forgiving God?
To forgive someone means someone did you wrong.
Oh, so is there such a thing?
Does this person think God did them wrong?
I don't know. Of course, I can't really ask that now. But I did hear of a story wherein this person said to me na kinailangan niyang gawin yun and it helped her.
What does she mean by forgiving God? He,
For
she, I don't know.
all the hardships in her life that have been, parang you just, I mean, what did I do to like earn this kind of thing? She just had to say it. And when she was telling me this story, she knows that there is nothing, there's no truth to the, like, I need to forgive God or that God sinned against me. But to say that was helpful for her. Yun ang sinabi niya. I don't know if, I don't know. I don't know what to make of that. Although she did say it helped her. So, yeah. I mean, I don't think it's right. I don't think it's essentially wrong. I'm just saying that this person said that it helped her. Yun lang.
I'm glad it helped her. But ikaw na rin nagsabi, or siya na rin nagsabi, na there's no truth to it. So I don't know what the point is in doing something that doesn't have truth to it.
Mhm.
The concept of forgiveness is someone did you wrong. Even the premise of what did I do to deserve. Yeah, diba? Job didn't have to forgive God. If anything, Job had to repent
Yeah.
for questioning God.
And I think
And God had his reasons. So not once did God do Job wrong. So yeah. Diba? For us to forgive God it's again, no, I'm glad it helped this person. I'm trying to remember who it was. You don't have to tell me now. While but it sounds blasphemous to me because si God pa yung magsasorry sa'yo ngayon. Si God pa yung ikaw pa yung judge na nagpatawad sa kanya. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess we're different that way. Na parang I feel like in the lack of a person and in groping for things that will help that person, if it helps at the end of the day to restore that person to like a better place where she could understand things, I feel like God would understand. I'm not saying it's
I'm not
real
saying
and
this
true.
person is wrong for what. I'm not saying. Well, maybe they are wrong. I'm not saying God wouldn't understand. God wouldn't give grace. I'm just saying.
It doesn't. It's not a real thing.
I'm just saying it's not something I can teach. I can recommend. I can prescribe. I would even share as a testimony to others because it's just so problematic. But does God use problematic things? Yeah. Does that mean we should teach other people to do it? Di ba? Parang,
Yeah.
so yun.
Okay. Next is, does unforgiveness block blessings?
I think so. I think we talked about that, right?
Yeah. I think that actually, parang ako naman, I don't think it necessarily blocks blessings. Like, I mean, you could still get blessed in a lot of ways, but at the same time, it could kill you in different ways too.
Yeah.
You get what I mean? Like, it's not a 1:1 na parang just because hindi ako nag-forgive, hindi ako magkakapera tomorrow. Parang hindi ganon.
Yeah.
Yun. It's more of like, you just don't see what it's doing to you, even when, and in spite of like having all of these blessings in your life.
I like how you distinguish that because sometimes we think of blocking blessings or like attracting. It's a very superstitious way of doing things where God is like,
na parang mag-forgive na lang ako para dumalo yung pera. Parang ganyan.
I think it's more along the way of like, if we choose to live a different way from the way God lives, we don't get the fullness of how He we don't get the benefits of His life. Diba? Parang ayaw mong gawin ng tama. So, hindi mo makukuha yung kabuuan ng gusto niya para sa'yo.
Okay. Can I forgive myself after all that's happened to my family? And I think I don't really know
Is
the backstory.
all the same person?
Hindi.
Okay.
Grabe naman kung isang tao
Oo nga
lang to,
eh.
di ba? No, I think I don't know the story of this person, but I'm guessing na this person did something that involved the entire family, and probably the family is suffering for that mistake,
Oh,
and
yeah.
that's hard.
Mhm.
And again, I would have to say that sorrow is different from unforgiveness towards oneself. You could be forever sorrowful about something that you've done. Kasi, let's face it, not all sins are equal, in the sense that some sins are really something that you would remember for the rest of your life. And some are
Yes.
like, okay, nakalimutan ko na yan. Isang anesthesia lang natapos na. Wala na, ganon.
Yeah.
Diba? So, ano rin eh, I think helpful din sa akin dati na pinadistinguish din sa akin yung ano ba yung punishment, ano ba yung unforgiveness, tsaka ano ba yung consequence.
Yeah, and that's why you have to remember the gospel, because the consequences of our sins sometimes will come out later on. And so to think that the prayer you prayed years or months ago, and you're like, oh my gosh, pati pala to bayad na. Diba? That's very powerful to think about. So we do need to remember the gospel even more, which goes back to the one forgiving God. Di ko makamove on, no? But diba, parang when you think back of how much we've done wrong in life, na wow, the fact that we're forgiven at all is the better thing to meditate on.
Yeah. Okay, and the last is, how can you forgive church leaders who hurt you? I picked this question because I feel like, and it will appear again even in the burnout questions,
Yeah.
that there seems to be like that ano ba, unwritten rule of like iba yung church people.
Yeah. And
'Di ba? Na yung parang kunwari mo commoners na lahat, pero yung church people untouchable yan.
yeah, and that's why we wanted to do the forgiveness episode nga, but to clarify, because we get told things like, oh, the forced to reconcile or stuff like that, which like a friend told me recently, like he was appalled that anyway, he wanted to attempt a forced reconciliation with some group that we knew, and it was like, why would you do that? So yeah, it's easy to get those concepts confused. What's the question? Can you forgive? Absolutely.
How can you forgive?
Well, I think part of
I think also kasi this person is coming from iba yung hurt ng, and
Oh,
tama
yeah.
yan, totoo
Oo.
yan, na feeling, ako nga lang yung sinasabi, yung church hurt, kasing grabe yan ng family hurt.
Yes.
Parang yung level ng kung paano ka dapat inalagaan ng nanay at tatay mo, tapos hindi nila nagawa yun sa'yo. Ang sakit nun, daladala mo yun buong buhay mo.
Yeah.
Ganon din ang church hurt, kasi ito dapat yung place na kung saan safe ka, na maghihilom ka,
Mhm.
and then after all this time, ito pa paling makakapanakit sa'yo, diba? So, it's a very real thing. We've already had a podcast about church hurt. You may want to like backtrack a little bit and look at those look at those episodes. But yeah, it's a real thing. How can you forgive? I feel like it's very, very hard to get yourself to forgive people you've expected to be. Alam mo yung parang, kung feeling mo yung tao, masamang tao, ang dali nang i-forgive kasi parang, ay, na-expect ko nang sama mo sa akin eh. Pero yung mga tao na hindi mo ina-expect, the last pa na maiisip mong gumawa nun sa'yo, yun talaga nga yung mahirap ipatawarin eh, no?
Yeah, I think part of the problem and part of the solution, and it's connected to the solution, is our tendency to put these people on a higher pedestal than we should. Now, the Bible says that they are worthy of double honor, that they watch over us. So there is that sense, but we are also all priests unto God. We are also all children of God equally. So to allow a person to have that much authority over us to the point that they gatekeep our relationship with God, that they will tell us which Bible verses to believe and which ones not. We should be all working towards being empowered as individuals, that we are able to hear from God ourselves and walk among a community of peers like that. And that's why the pain is so bad, because of that position they occupied in our life. And I think that part of the healing will be to realize that tao lang rin sila. Tao lang rin sila. So I can forgive them, I can give them grace, but at the same time, I don't need to take their word as gospel also. It helps when they're apologetic. It helps when they acknowledge. I've had to do that to you, to the kids, to people I've led, people I've discipled. I've had that experience with people who've led me. It helps when people are like that. But even if they aren't, that doesn't. They're not the gatekeepers to your relationship with God. And I know that's easier said than done, and that's hard to walk in, but that's where you're trying to go. And when you aim there and you say, God, I want to see you apart from the abuse that I heard. Lord, I want to see you apart from the gaslighting I've experienced. Lord, I want your word to speak to me. I'm afraid of your word because I can't touch it without remembering what was said or done to me. But I want to be able to encounter your word freshly. He will do that. And that's the beginning of the healing.
Yeah. Okay, so we've closed
Forgiveness
off
again.
all the forgiveness in like 15 minutes. Let's move on to the next topic.
Topic of the day.
Which is burnout. Okay, thoughts first. Ano ba ang burnout?
Question. I thought this was really interesting that next to forgiveness, and for a while it was the leading candidate, that more people wanted to talk about burnout. I did not think that that was going to be the leading one in the Telegram group poll. So again, plugging, if you want to participate, join the Telegram group and help us select topics.
Okay, so what
Well, it's obviously connected to stress, but but over and over again, the resources that I found online said it's not the same thing as stress. Stress is having too much on your plate, too much, too heavy, too frequent, whatever. Whereas burnout is a feeling of a lack of motivation, a loss of motivation, a loss of sense of meaning, a loss of sense of passion with the thing that you're doing. So it's almost like one is a sense of too much stress, and then the other one is a sense of too little. Too little passion. Wala na. I
mm,
don't have any meaning for this
okay, that's
anymore.
helpful because I've always thought of burnout as not really a lack of passion. Parang for me, you can have so much passion, but then your capability, hindi mo na lang talaga kaya. Parang umabot ka na sa dulo ng capability mo.
That sounds like stress. Nga. Where because I just have too little, you know what I mean? So another resource I saw said that stress is more physical and burnout is more psychological, emotional.
Ah,
So stress is
okay.
like, yun nga, hindi na ako makabangon. I literally have no energy to give to you anymore. I'm physically sick. I'm breaking down.
Oh.
My body's breaking down. That's stress. And too much of that will lead to burnout, where I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. I don't even know why I do this.
Oh,
Sometimes, though,
okay.
not necessarily, where there'll be people, and we've seen these examples, we've been in these seasons of our life where there's a lot of stress, and yet you're not burning out yet. Like you actually want to give more, which might be bad actually, because you're killing yourself
Is
faster.
there a okay, so if it's a lack of motivation and parang you don't even know why you're doing this anymore, is it possible that you just don't parang it's just a point of like not finding the same values that you found to be really great before
Could be. There's a lot of
in
reasons.
parang nag-change ka lang. Pwede ba yon
Could
na
be.
yung burnout parang you were led to burnout because you are a changing person and at some point in your life you just feel like it's enough. I mean, I can't do this anymore.
It could be. I mean, other things could be like office politics
Right, right. Oo,
or
oo, oo.
like
Gets.
buffeted by life situations. Like
Tinatry ko kasi identify ano ba yung sa akin. Parang ganun. Ganun yata yung sa akin eh. Na yung gusto ko pa naman yung ginagawa ko pero parang I just don't hold the same feelings about the job anymore.
I saw this thing from helpguide.org. Are
Sige.
you on the road to burnout? And maybe you might want to think back to this. You may be on the road to burnout if every day is a bad day. If caring about your work or home life seems like a total waste of energy, if you're exhausted all the time, if the majority of your day is spent on tasks you find either mind numbingly dull or overwhelming. And number five, you feel like nothing you do makes a difference or is appreciated.
Mm.
It's interesting, no?
Yeah.
Every day is a bad day.
Okay.
There isn't a day. Did you ever feel that?
Mm. I just didn't want to go anymore.
Okay.
Like, parang ganon. Yung, I'm just so done. I want to do something else na.
Here, there's some other questions.
Mm.
This one naman is from Mayo Clinic. Have you become cynical or critical at work?
Mm-hmm. Mm.
I've gotten there. Do you drag yourself to work and have trouble getting started? That's what you found in me. Right
Mm.
before I resigned, you were like,
Mm.
no offense, but I've never seen you drag yourself to work.
Mm-mm.
Have you become irritable or impatient with coworkers, customers, or clients? Ako family. Do you lack the energy to be consistently productive? Do you find it hard to concentrate? Do you lack satisfaction from your achievements? Do you feel disillusioned about your job? Are you using food, drugs, or alcohol to feel better or to simply not feel? I would add other addictive things, digital things like social media or video games. Have your sleep habits changed? Are you troubled by unexplained headaches, stomach or bowel problems, or other physical complaints?
Okay.
So here's the causes of burnout. So those are the symptoms. Those are like the
Okay.
warning signs. And the stuff you said earlier, maybe some of these things, but it's not only this. The main one is lack of control, an inability to influence decisions that affect your job. This is still from Mayo Clinic. Secondly, is unclear job expectations. And that's why you keep feeling like you're failing because I wasn't sure what I was supposed to do. Third are dysfunctional workplace dynamics. Maybe you have an office bully or you feel undermined by your colleagues or your boss. Four is extremes of activity. When a job is monotonous, it's just so monotonous, then it becomes super chaotic. Five is lack of social support. You feel isolated. And number six is work life imbalance, where
Work-life imbalance.
yeah, you're not able to really live a
Yeah.
healthy life.
I think that's mine. It's more of like, because I don't really remember anymore. Sobrang many years ago na yun eh, when I was working for a company. And I feel like it was more that na this is just not sustainable.
Yeah.
This is not the way that I want to live for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I mean, I still like my job. I could still do this and do that. But it's just gonna steal a whole lot of like the other parts of me.
Yeah. I remember you telling me about this, how there, I'm looking back now using this grid, there was a feeling of helplessness where part of you felt that the only exit was death.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can only be done with this when I die.
Mm-hmm.
Because I
Yeah,
can't see
yeah,
another
yeah,
way to
yeah.
slow down or regain control.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that one of the questions that some of the people asked us already was answered because
Oh.
yung iba, ang tanong nila, parang I pulled them together parang in groups, and one is like, ano ba yung signs? How do I
Yeah.
know I'm already heading towards burnout? And you already said a couple of them, like
Yeah.
these are the signs. And maybe we could add a little bit to that na ano ba yung mga things that lead to burnout kasi?
Yeah. So again, I think the lack of control was one of the most common ones I saw. And it's just because human beings were made by God, ang layo, theological, to be in His image, co-creators with Him, which means human beings bring energy, creativity, volition, the freedom to act in their activities. And when we don't have that, it's only a matter of time before that will really dehumanize us
Mm-hmm.
and make us feel like I really don't have a choice.
Yeah, and I feel like if it's all, syempre, no, obviously, this is tied to work. Again, another theological thing that we could look at is creation. God was working, and on the seventh day, He rested. Whether that is literal or not it is very clear that there is rest.
Yeah.
Diba? At kasama yan lagi sa rhythm ng lahat.
Yes.
Ng create niya. Pag tinignan mo yung mundo, meron talaga siyang, di ba kahit nga mga farmers na kausap natin,
Yeah.
meron talagang panahon na kailangan mo pagpahingahin yung lupa.
Yeah.
So, kahit ang lupa nagpapahinga, so dapat pati tao, di ba?
Yeah.
Sana nagpapahinga tayo. So, I feel like dun din tayo nag-head sa burnout.
Yeah,
Pag
yeah.
hindi tayo, and we talked about this before when we did a video that sometimes burnout is caused by your employers, your company, because they don't know when to stop.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, it would be equally your fault because they didn't hire you to take care of you. So you should be able to take care of yourself. And I think it's a great lie if you believe that your employers, when they say that they're going to take care of you. I mean, to some extent, I think they will. They should give you benefits. Alam mo yan?
Yeah.
Mga ganon. But I wouldn't expect more. Especially so when this is already coming into a conflict with your work. Kumbaga, syempre kung employer mo ko, between rest mo, tsaka yung productivity ng kumpanya natin, uunahin ko syempre yung productivity ng kumpanya natin, no? I mean, like, not everyone's like that. Marami din namang bosses that are like, yung nakakabilib na, wow, talaga, you're willing to swallow all of that cost just to be kind to your employees.
Well, I would put it this way, diba? The best organizations to work for, the best leaders, supervisors to work for, all the literature says that these people will find a way to reconcile what's best for your flourishing as well as for the company or the organization's goals. And when that doesn't happen, that's an organization that you need to be wary of. Because when they don't care about human flourishing, their staff, then be wary about that. And here's one way that you know it's a wise leader. When they empower you to make decisions for your own well-being. Instead of saying, wag mo nang isipin yan, ibigay mo na sa akin lahat, ako ang mag-aalaga sa'yo, ay hindi po totoo yan. Kung magkasakit yung magulang mo, hindi sila yung pupunta doon. If they do, that's bonus, that's above and beyond.
Yes, it's good to look at it as a bonus, not as a requirement or like a real expectation.
Yeah, and so any leader who leads you into thinking that don't think about your personal life, give everything to me, anyway, kami naman bahala dyan, that is a huge red flag. That is a massive alarm bells going off, red flag going, whoa, 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 why don't you want me to secure my financial independence? Why don't you want me to make sure that my family can have a better living situation? What's in it for you? And recently, I was just talking to a friend, and this friend of mine was describing how she's preparing for retirement at the age of 43. And I thought, it's very wise of her, you know, like super advanced. And her boss's boss said to her, it's too soon to be thinking about
My
retirement.
gosh, okay.
And instead of like praising this person for being wise and planning ahead and even bettering themselves so they can serve the organization better, nagamitan pa siya ng ganun. And I was so proud of my friend because my friend was like, nope, I know I'm doing the right thing. This will help the organization and it will also help me. That's the sense of control. That's the sense of agency that will help prevent burnout.
You know, honestly, that this is so true. When I was talking to Randall also, sabi niya,
Randall Chongson, financial
yeah,
advisor, yes.
yeah. One of the like the smartest things about like the younger people than us daw it's that they know how to prepare for their future. Like people younger than us have already bought properties for their children to be.
Yeah, wow.
Okay, children to be. They're not even married. They don't even have children yet, but they're already preparing for that. And why I mentioned that is because
if you haven't done that, no pressure, ah. Okay.
yeah. I'm just saying that it's just a very wise way to go about life, and not only because you're acquiring properties or that you have a lot of material possession. Hindi yun eh. It's more of like financial freedom.
Yeah.
Kaya mong mag-relax. Kaya mong sabihin na, sige, hindi mo na ako hahustle ng sobra ngayon kasi may financial freedom na ako. Kumbaga, you're hustling in the right seasons of your life.
Yep.
Which is like for me, no, that's a big bonus for me. I was able to hustle earlier on in my life that it bought me so much freedom to be with my children lang when I
Yeah.
had them na.
Yeah, and even the ability to hustle. 'Di ba? So it's not just stress eh. Because if you feel this feeling of like, I'm hustling, I'm making money, okay, I'm a little stressed now, konting kayod lang to, pero that's a very fulfilling idea. Pero yung ibang tao, hindi kasi hustle eh. Hassle.
Nag-hassle kami.
Hindi,
I'm
hustle or
hassling.
hassle, di ba? Na parang I'm working
Pero ito
so
meron akong
hard.
tanong.
I'm giving so much energy. I'm not naman making more money. I'm not naman it's not naman more productive. Yeah, so for some people, it's not hustle, it's hassle lang eh, diba? Like you go overtime, you give so much energy and effort. It doesn't translate to making more money. It doesn't translate to better work-life balance. That's the feeling of helplessness.
Yeah.
And then people who get that learned helplessness, that's a very disempowering feeling. That's when burnout begins to happen. That's when you begin to think, you know what, I don't care. Wala namang point. Wala namang nagagawa. Wala namang effect. Then, a friend of mine was telling me recently about her case of burnout. And she was saying that, which is here in the articles we've read also, she described it to a T, depersonalization. I was just going through the motions. It wasn't even me anymore. And look, we're talking as if we're talking to
So
workers.
wala kang pinagkaiba sa isang photocopier.
Yeah. But I want to speak to managers, supervisors, anybody overseeing other people. That's not how you want your people to be. You want your people creative. You want your people engaged. You want your people solving problems before they even reach your desk. And they'll only get there if you free them to have agency, to think. But if they're not going to let them, and you're going to micromanage everything and nitpick everything and the word choice is wrong. Like, for example lang, recently, I'm so proud of her. Renelda, our helper, just recently prepared this dish for us. It's called nilaga in Negros. But it tastes like sinigang. It's got pork, langka, mongo. It was so good. And I just loved her initiative to buy these things, take a risk on this recipe she's never prepared for us before, and just know na magugustuhan ni Sir at ni Ma'am to. And we love it. And it's within the budget. We love that even more about it. But that's a person who's engaged, who's creative, who's thinking outside the box, because she knows they're not gonna scream at me every time I experiment and get something slightly wrong. So bosses, you want your people there. You want them engaged.
At saka tapos na tayo dun sa era na kailangan mukha kang busy at saka pagod para sabihin nating successful ka. Kasi
Yes.
diba totoo naman, may kulturang gano'n na parang hindi ko nga maintindihan sino ba nagsabi na ito yung nagde-determine na ang isang kumpanya ay successful.
Well, a lot
Pag
of
mukha kayong busy, 'di ba? Yung parang at saka pagka tough yung mga bosses nyo, 'di ba? Parang ito yung mga panahon na pinapa-feel sa'yo na kailangan naghirap ka, nagdusa ka, dumugo ka para sabihin na ang galing mo or you deserve this position in the company. Parang tigilan na natin to kasi nakapatay na to ng maraming tao, 'di ba? So tama na.
Yeah, and that idea of depersonalization, it reminds me of, and I don't like running except sprinting, but when you do long distance running, people will say that if your feet get numb, you better stop because that's when you're close to injury. Because now your foot placement is not intentional anymore. You're not minding your posture, your stride. You're just like, bah, bah, like slapping your foot against the road. That's gonna injure you eventually. And I think it's the same thing when you're burned out, when you're checked out. That's where injuries come in. You end up giving more than you should. That's when like the symptoms we've described, where addictions develop. Look, in myself in the past, I just know seasons of burnout are times that I'll feel way more tempted by porn. I'll feel way more tempted to just play video games. I'll feel way more tempted to not even engage my family at home because you're not there, ne? Your body is shutting down. So this is the place of injury. You don't want to be there. You don't want to be there. You want to find
And
that
I
engagement again.
also read, I forget which book, but parang it was very wise in saying na we always compartmentalize kasi na this is for work and this is for the personal private
But
life,
it's
diba?
yeah.
But the reality is you bring your entire self with you to work.
Yep.
So to employers, take it or leave it. Your employees are coming to your offices with their entire selves. And so if we don't, give them, I'm not saying be a charity na lahat na lang ng kaartehan nila ibigay nyo, 'di ba? Na parang ayoko yan, hindi ganoon. But we have to be mindful of the rhythms at work. Some are just, not, it's inhumane already. So I think it's worth always to look into your work culture if you're already doing something that depersonalizes, dehumanizes your employees.
I think also it might be wise because sometimes the employers aren't entirely at fault, but the people they're leading are prone to burnout. And if we're wise, discerning colleagues and supervisors, then we'll spot that about them. So I like this. This is in helpguide.org where they said, here are some personality traits that might contribute to burnout. And maybe you might see this in yourselves. Number one is perfectionist tendencies. Nothing is ever good enough. Naka-burnout naman talaga yun. Pessimistic view of yourself and the world. 3, the need to be in control with a reluctance to delegate to others. And number 4, a high-achieving type A personality.
Alam mo, ang ganda niyan. Ang gandang segue kasi yung next na parang group of questions is, paano pag yung demand is high pero di mo na talaga kaya? Isa naman, you are called for this pero ubus na ubus ka na. Di na kaya ng mental health mo. Is that valid? Parang both questions kasi are saying that, valid ba na sabihin mong hindi mo na kaya?
Oo.
And yung reason ng isa ay the demand is high. Yung reason naman ng isa, calling niya.
Oo.
Kaya lang, ubos na siya, hindi na kaya ng mental health niya. So, paano ba yun? Kaya maganda rin na segue to kasi parang dun sa, ako parang pag binabasa ko yung mga question na yan, demand is high. Okay, i-drop mo yan. May gagawa namang iba for sure. At kung wala man, ay problema na nila yun kasi at some point, hindi na talaga kakayanin ng tao. Kailangan din ma-address yung problema na yun. Na kung ganito high yung demand, is it even sustainable? Is it even a real demand that you should be meeting when it's already killing your people? That's one. The other one is calling. O yan, sige. Alam mo, dyan ako maraming tao na hindi makapag-quit kasi lagi sinasabi na, calling ko kasi to. Ano ba? Calling mong mamatay sa trabaho? Ano ba yun?
Yeah, and diba, calling means there's a caller. Who's the caller? And for me, that was one of the most helpful things in the recent, the 15 months since I've resigned. Going back to, I'm not departing from my calling because I'm following the caller, which is God. And so the question, if people who use that language are often coming from a religious or spiritual place, and to that I would ask them, what does God call you to do? Don't tell me a script, a line, a narrative, a catchphrase. Tell me what God says to you based on His word. Because, when we look at God's word, there's a rhythm of work and rest. There is the verse in John where he says, my Father is always at work and I too am always working. And then there's also the verse that says, come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, I will give you rest. So it's not one or the other. So if you have an extreme view of that, then I would like to know who is calling you, because that's not God. And that's something that needs to be evaluated.
Yeah. And, like, yung mga sinabi mo nga, di ba? There are so many issues within us that we confuse with things like calling.
Yeah.
Di ba? Na parang, calling ba talaga o meron kang perfectionism?
Yeah.
Or parang, like ako, personal issue ko siya na feeling ko babagsak yung mundo pag hindi ako gumalaw.
Ay,
Na
nako.
parang, hindi totoo yun.
Oo.
Hindi totoo yun, di ba? Parang, bakit the world is in my hands? Di ba sabi, si God yun.
I love every day that you sleep in.
Yeah, so, so you also have, I think, what I wanted to say about that is to identify your issues also. Because, some employers of ours are very good in capitalizing our issues, ha?
And I want to
They,
speak to that nga na if you're a boss of someone, manager, even a colleague, watch out for that with your people because
yes,
you know that's gonna cause
yes.
them to burn out. And so even for me, teams I've led in the past, I could see it. And what it takes one to know one, maybe I could see it in myself.
Alam na alam mo eh. Kaya nga you attract the same kind of people din eh.
Yeah.
Parang the same kind of workers. Kasi lahat kayo, yung mga may gusto patunayan.
Yeah, and that's why
Ganon.
I did my best, wasn't always successful, but I did my best to stop that tendency in them because I can't have you shutting down midstream. Like even in like a self-interested organization focused thing, if you don't take a break now, bibigay ka sa gitna ng event, bibigay ka sa gitna ng camp. Diba? Yun yung ayoko. Magpahinga na tayo ngayon para alam natin. That being said, you can't avoid it. May mamamatayan, may magkakasakit. That's life. That happens naman. It's not a guarantee. But if you give them that and you speak to those deeper issues, so I've worked with people like this, people who are afraid, who always have to be in control and are afraid to delegate. And my mistake before was leaning on someone like that too heavily to the point that she got burned out. And so I learned in the future that someone who does that, I'll warn them. I'll say, you are not performing well because you're taking everything. I will give you a low mark for doing too much because you shouldn't have even been touching that at all. And we're okay with less than, perfect at this point to train somebody else, but you're going to have to learn how to rest. So find that tendency in your people
Yes.
and yourself.
Find that tendency in your people, and you also be careful of the people who are, ordering you around, because for all we know, they can see that in you and they can capitalize on that. Na, okay, I can actually get a lot of things done. I mean, it's reality. Not all bosses are going to be on the watch out for your mental health, what have you. So you have to do that for yourself. Na, kung alam mo naman na people pleaser ka, 'di ba? Medyo mag-ingat ka na sa mga taong gusto din nila na piniplease sila. Kasi baka nga, yun pa yung konsentihin nila sa'yo. And ang ending mo, burnout, di ba?
Yeah. Let's talk about what to do now. And then maybe there's time for questions at the end.
Okay, what to do? O, sige.
Or you want to do the questions first?
Ito kasi sabi niya, how to recognize that you're heading towards burnout early. How
Ayun
to
na,
prevent it.
nasabi na nga natin. Na
Okay.
if you're depersonalizing, if you're disengaging, you're feeling a loss of control. Maybe you say this to yourself a lot. Ano namang magagawa ko? Diba? You complain, ito yung problema, pero ano namang magagawa ko? That's a dangerous place to be.
Siguro isang napakagandang sign ay yung nawawala talaga yung joy mo. Di ba? How to acknowledge burnout. Pag alam mo na may burnout ka, paano mo ba inaamin yun sa sarili mo at sinasabi sa ibang tao?
Paano mo aamin? What do you mean?
I mean, like, do you just, or do you like say it to like if you're burned out, do you say it to your bosses? You should, right?
Yeah.
You should? Right? And
yeah. Tsaka, what was that article or that social media post I was reading recently that said, we need to acknowledge our finitude.
finitude, yeah. Oo, tama. Alam mo, actually, this stems from the issue of akala mo, invincible ka.
Yeah. That's me.
How to recover? Parang, is there a way of recovering from burnout? Actually, medyo tied siya dun sa question na isa na parang sabi niya, for me, burnout has always resulted to quitting. Is there another way? Is quitting bad? Okay lang ba to surrender to burnout?
Surrender to burnout?
Meaning siguro, I'm deducing na ang sinasabi niya, pag burnout kasi, parang end of it na, should I surrender to that? Na, okay, quit na. Stop na talaga lahat. I'll just look for another job. Ganon.
Maybe. Maybe you should have to do that, diba? I mean, the problem kasi is if you don't want to acknowledge your limits, they will be forced upon you.
Yung
Ma-hospital ka na. Alam mo yun, yung ganon. Or mamumulubi ka na.
okay, sige. Nandun na nga tayo, sinabi natin yan, di ba? Na parang ano ba ang way para hindi ka mag-head towards burnout is to watch out for your own health, 'di ba?
Mm.
That's one. That's the number one thing that you could do for
Mm.
yourself. But if let's say umabot ka talaga sa burnout, is there a way of recovering from it? Sa tingin mo kaya pa
Absolutely.
ba?
Oo. Yes,
Kaya
absolutely.
pa.
Oo.
Okay. At paano tayo nagre-recover from it?
So number one is we need to recover our agency. And part of that is evaluate your options. If you feel like you have no options, that's not a very good sign. Um, you need to remember that you have options. And here's the thing, no. Every time I've posted this recently, someone out there is gonna say, "Wow, what a privileged position! Not everybody has that chance. There are employers, so it is the only job they have." And you know what? You're right in saying that. You're right. The deck is stacked. People are unfair. A lot of people with privilege do not help the people who are less privileged. True. Granted. Dapat magbago silang lahat. Okay? Given na yon. E paano kung hindi? Diba?
Paano nga?
You've got to find a way for yourself. That doesn't preclude, that doesn't exclude the possibility of other people showing compassion. We should show compassion to them. We should help them. Like si Renelda nga, di ba? Parang we'll catch these negative behaviors in her and we'll find out, what are you doing that for? And we'll correct ourselves and realize, oh my gosh, this is how she processes money because this is all she can make. So we'll help her, to make right decisions. We'll give her more. So yes, people can help, but you have to own your process. All right? Canceling someone for telling someone else to have agency does not help that other person. If you really want to help them, the best help you can do is to help them rediscover their agency, to help them rediscover their voice, to help them see their options, to give them ways, to help to brainstorm with them about how to work this out.
But newsflash, usually, I wouldn't say naman usually, but there are a lot of bosses and companies who don't like to give that agency to you.
Yeah, if you feel that, kaya nga you need to talk to the people who are helping you do that. If you talk to people who are constantly gaslighting you, constantly removing that from you, na ba't mo pa ginagawa yan? Wait, I'm trying nga to recover my agency.
Actually,
alam mo yon? I'm trying nga to be a better worker for you.
Kung ayaw mo rin, kung gusto maka-recover sa burnout or ayaw mo ng burnout, kumausap ka rin ng mga taong nasa labas ng trabaho mo. Yan ang isang nakikita kong very wise thing to do. Kasi pag nasa loob siya ng workplace mo, chances are, mas magiging, it's very, parang mayupik eh. Yung lahat ng nakikita ninyo ay nasa loob lang.
Yep.
And sometimes hindi yun mahe-help. It's not because mali sila or evil sila. It's more of like, syempre, yung as an organ, di ba?
Yeah.
Your goal is to survive and to make this thing work. And so they will do everything. Between you and the work, they will do everything to save the work.
Yep.
Even if they truly love you, they truly care for you, it's hard.
I've had to part with people I work with for that reason. Not that I care for them less as individuals or staff. It's just, you're not helping me accomplish the goals of the organization.
Totoo yan, kasi minsan din yung mga issues natin sa buhay, hindi naman din helpful dun sa organization eh.
Yeah, but I don't hold it against them. And if they tell me later on down the road that, you know what, working for you didn't help me, well, okay, you can tell me that.
What I'm saying is that
you're doing better.
There are seasons in life where I feel like hindi ka rin magwo-work in all sorts of scenarios just because you're not really healthy individually. So parang for you to be in this kind of, like let's say a robust organization that's trying to get everything, nandun sila sa season na yon, get it all, goal getting, goal reaching, what have you. Then ikaw nandun ka sa kailangan ko mag-slow down sa buhay ko. Mismatch na kaagad yung energies na, not any one of you is wrong, like not the organization and not you, but more like they need this, you can't give that.
I was just talking to a girl at church
two
Sundays ago about that. Mm-hmm. Where she was like, look, I'm in a job that I really wanted to have. It's fast-paced, but I don't think I should be enough. And so she's afraid. She's really afraid of taking this risk, which we prayed about trusting God there. So again, back to agency. Part of your recovering your agency is to just think about your options. To just talk about your options with someone else. That's so empowering. To be like, alam mo, pwede to, pwede yan. You might still end up like, I still want to work here, but I know I have other options.
So I kind of like think that's also the answer to, is the answer always just quitting? Of course not. I
No,
mean,
no.
there are times when all you need is a step back and, put things in order.
Yep.
Like na baka, like a little tweak here and there already removes that demotivated
Yeah.
condition in you. But then also there are times when you just really need to remove yourself out of that place
Yeah.
for whatever reason, 'di ba? Hindi siya one size fits all. I cannot give you an answer of quit ka. Basta na burnout ka, quit ka.
No.
'Di ba? Definitely I would say take a step back.
Yeah.
If you're burned out, the first thing to do is take a step back, ask for that rest, ask for that leave so you can think clearly because ang taong nalulunod hindi kayang mag-isip ng malinaw.
Yeah.
So, kailangan mo munang alisin yung sarili mo sa point na nalulunod ka, 'di ba?
Yeah.
Na makapahinga ka, makatulog ka kasi 'di ba nga sabi nila lalo na yung mga walang tulog diyan. Nabasa ko to na mas marami daw nangyayaring aksidente sa weekends.
Yep.
Kasi yun yung panahon na parang lumalabas na lahat ng pagod mo from the weekdays na para ka nang it's tantamount to being drunk.
Yeah.
So you get into car accidents because your mind is and your brain is just that tired.
Yeah. Connected to regaining your agency, go do something you want to do.
Yeah, that's true. That's
And
true.
not something destructive. Again, like the addictions we mentioned earlier, like alcoholism or sexual addiction. Wag ganon. That's not helpful. Play a sport you like. Go back to a hobby. I like the way my friend Adam Mabry describes it in his book, The Art of Rest. He calls it avocation, which is work that's not for productivity, work that's not for profit, diba? But it's work that I do. I like doing this. A very helpful thing is to be in nature. Exercise.
From the book Every Good Endeavor, na may kinote dyan si Tim Keller na Joseph Pfeiffer book. It's called Leisure as the Basis of Culture. And I think the point that he was trying to make there was that we all need not only a stepping back and a sleeping, as if, one sleep can regain everything for you, but also a looking away and looking at something else because it's the basis of all culture, like creativity, of iba ang taong nakapahinga sa taong rejuvenated, refreshed. Yung parang may new lenses to see life. Hindi yung parang nakatulog ka lang. Kasi kahit nakatulog ka, pagising mo, kung ganun pa rin yung nakikita mo, ang hirap mag-move on, di ba? So, kailangan meron ka ring nakikitang ibang bagay. And yun tama yung avocation It has to be something that is not related to you. Even with moms, I always say this.
Yeah.
I know you like to read books about childhood development, breastfeeding, lahat na lang tungkol sa, ganyan ako lahat babasahin ko. Pero I make it a point that I will read something for myself.
Yep.
I will read poetry. I will read essays that, have nothing to do with motherhood. Because I feel like that refreshes me. And that makes me go back to my mothering with, I'm a whole person.
Yep.
Okay? Yes, I'm your mom, but I'm also Rika. Diba? And these are the things I like that are, apart from being a mom, ito yung mga gusto kong bagay sa buhay.
A good...
And that's agency.
That's agency.
Kasi diba, parang hindi nananakaw ng mga anak ko. Lahat, yung buong pagkatao ko.
And you're a better mom when you are
yun
like
naman
that.
yung niya talaga effect diba? So, yun na nga, even for the employers, you have a better employee if you give them that.
Another connecting thing for regaining control and agency is to find people to talk to. Just like you said that sometimes natulog ka nga pagising mo, but that's still the same worldview. You didn't widen your perspective. Same thing with relationships. Sometimes if we're talking to people who are in the same situation, who are in the same soup as us, you'll talk, but you didn't widen your perspective.
Right.
And sometimes it's just someone else, For example, if it's a very difficult work situation, talk to your family. Parang, oh, may ibang paraan pala. Sometimes the burnout is happening with family. Talk to a friend and you're like, oh, I could do this. So the world widens. You don't necessarily have to do what the other people are saying, but you can think about it and now you see you have more options than you realized at first.
Alam mo, actually, ang ganda nito na parang nakakabuo tayo ng anong gagawin mo pag na-burnout ka. First, step back. Second, look away. Third, look at something else.
Yeah.
And then, you can go back. Parang that is the only time that you can go back to the point of where you were burned out. Pag nagawa mo na yung 3 steps na yun, nag-look away ka, step back ka na ba? Nag-look away ka na ba? Did you look at something else? And then you can go back to it and see it with a much better perspective, hopefully.
Yep.
All right.
That's it for me.
That's it for you. Okay, meron lang tayong iba pa dito na feeling ko ito. How to address burnout and breadwinning for the family. How to address burnout as a housewife. I think the essence of these
You
questions is
cannot
yung,
get away.
yes, parang, can I stop being a housewife? Can I stop being a mom? Can I stop, breadwinning for my family? What if hindi na sila makakain because, I stopped? So what do you do when it's like that? You're like in a really helpless situation.
I think that's one of the things kasi that makes people burn out a lot. It's that feeling you've written yourself into a corner. You've painted yourself into a corner. And I'm not saying it's your fault or maybe you didn't mean for this to happen, but you have to realize that there's another way.
Yeah, oo.
And there might be a better way. There might be a simpler way. There might be maybe let's say you're a breadwinner. I can't because I'm paying for so much. Well, what can you work and pay for healthily? And what can't you pay for anymore? And nobody should pay for that anymore. Because like you struggled with that for so long.
Actually, I was gonna say
And
nga,
so many people were on your bill. And when you were like, no, I can't do this, kaya naman pala ng ibang family members.
yan yung yan din yung story ko na burnout na ako at lagi ko iniisip in the back of my head, how will my family survive if I stopped working? But then, you know what? They did.
Yeah.
It made all
And
of
they're
us
amazing.
creative to find ways to live when I stopped supplying for everyone. I'm not saying that this is the only answer, but it can be an answer. You have to find what is sustainable. I think at the end of the day, we just really have to face the fact that we're limited, na hindi natin magagawa at kaya lahat. And I don't think that God is asking that of anyone.
Yep.
I think
And that's where trusting God comes in. Because God, you told me I'm supposed to be able to rest. So either you're going to give me some magical rest that's only an hour long but lasts for a week, or you're going to help me find a way to provide.
Oh, at saka rin, ito rin yung mo na ultimately si God naman ang nagde-determine ng lahat. And I don't know if you believe that or not, but culture is very strong. And sometimes they can make you feel you're a bad person for stepping out of like what they see as a duty na parang sa'yo na nga lang kami umaasa tapos ikaw pa yung nag-quit sa amin, di ba? But the reality is it's not a sustainable model. It's something that you need to address sooner or later. Kung hindi ka bibigay ngayon, bibigay ka pa rin at some point. So you really have to know and find your security na knowing that no one can ask this much of a person.
Yeah.
Because we just can't give it. It's just not possible.
And that's where, even in that book, Every Good Endeavor, how rest is an act of resistance. Diba? It's an act of defiance in this world saying, no, you tell me I can't sleep. You tell me I have no ability to step back. No, I believe my God. I will go to sleep. Diba? I need to know when I'm at my limit and I will stop.
How funny, last night, diba? We were just talking about this na if you had friends na parang medyo on the, yung parang you're always the person that they talk to about like ending their lives.
Yeah.
And sometimes we just have to free
You're an emotional burden bearer. Yeah.
Oh, emotional burden bearer ka na. And it is unfair. And sometimes, naintindihan mo rin naman talaga yung mga may condition na they can't help it eh. They will have to say it. And ikaw yung nakakasalo. Ikaw naman, as someone na sumasalo, should be able to find your peace in knowing that there's nothing I can do. If this person ends up doing it, I shouldn't blame myself. Of course not. Ideally, mapaniwalaan mo yon. Usually, hindi. Kasi traumatic talaga siya. But all I'm saying is that there is peace in knowing that I can sleep through this because at the end of the day, I'm not God.
Yep.
I'm not the one who's gonna save this person. I can do everything. I can even be there by this person's side. But, I can't be with this. Realistically speaking, kahit ako, mga nanay, mga anak ko, 24/7 di kami magkadikit. Hindi ko nakikita lahat na ginagawa nila. Kami mag-asawa, ganun din. Walang ganun sa mundo, di ba? And we're not designed to be that way. So, free yourself of that burden.
Yep.
And I think that's it. One last question. I've had leaders say we only experience burnout because of misplaced motivation. Is that real or is that not real? Can I say something? I think it's manipulation. Ayun lang. Ganun lang ako kadiretso. I think what you heard is manipulation. They want you to keep on working, to keep on doing what they want you to do. Kaya nila sinabi yun.
Yeah, I think it's one thing to say it could be misplaced motivation. Let's explore what's going on here.
Tsaka iniisip ko kasi
Because it could
ano
be.
ang misplaced motivation?
No, kunyari parang what's motivating you is acclaim from other people and not the pleasure of God. Parang ganun. So,
okay, sige.
so, I think it could be, but to say it's only that, alam mo yun yung problema eh.
Yeah.
Na it's belittling someone's cry for help. Someone saying, hey, I feel like I'm up to my neck already. Ano na lang yan? Parang ganon. Yeah, so people who do that a lot to you consistently.
Can I just say something?
Alam mo na yun.
Like some church leaders are like the worst advisors ever. So I just had to say it because like I've experienced it. And I'm like, this person shouldn't give advice anymore. Anyway.
I think here's a fair way to put that. Fair naman, tama naman. Totoo naman sinabi mo. Marami naman ganun. There are a lot of people who give good advice.
Ayo naman.
I think here's what you need to look for. Conflict of interest. If they have
in anything.
Yeah.
Not only in
Parang,
church or like work.
this person
lahat.
just told me that God told them to tell me that I should give them all of my money. Diba? Medyo halata yung conflict of interest, diba? Parang, did God really say that? So, diba? God just told them to tell me that I'm supposed to. So, someone messaged me recently on IG, sweetheart, and she said, I'm being told to live a life of service as a believer. And I said, yeah, I think you should. Everyone should, like Jesus served us. She said, but I'm overwhelmed. I'm providing for my family. I'm doing the chores at home. And how do I add more time to live a life of service? And I said, what? You already live a life of service. It sounds like you're providing for your family. You're doing the chores. And she said, no, what they mean is to volunteer in our ministry. And I said, oh, that's a conflict of interest. Diba? Na kulang ba talaga yung ginagawa ng taong to na kailangan kung kaya mo pa, di mabuti gawin mo. Pag di mo kaya, alam mo naman yun. So, ba't mo pipilitin, di ba? So, yun lang. Just be aware of conflict of interest talaga.
Yep.
Yung.
And that is it. I hope this episode on burnout was able to help you guys. And if you have follow-up questions, we have our Telegram group. So join na. It's gonna be at the description, the show notes. You can just join anytime and then we can discuss things when you've heard this podcast. But thank you to everyone who sent us questions. And yeah, that's it.
That's it. Bye.
Bye. Thanks for tuning in. If you want to hear the rest of the episode, you can listen to it on our podcast. We are available on Spotify.
We also have our socials and chat rooms, and we sure hope to see you there.